Welcome back to In the Spotlight, the podcast with Kathleen and Jeannie, where we talk about all sorts of issues from the federal on down, but these are issues that impact people in the suburbs, really, of Chicago, where we connect the dots for you on policy choices that politicians are making that really do affect your lives. And in this segment, we have with us John Cabello. He is a police officer. He's from Rockford. He is a former colleague of mine. I served with John in the state legislature. We were both Republican state representatives during the Madigan time.
Yep.
And so we fought that hard. But we brought him in because in the wake of the Ella French murder, the 29-year-old Chicago police officer who was killed Saturday night, and now the aftermath of what we know about the perpetrators, the suspects in this case. We wanted to bring John Cabello in for a couple different reasons. One, we want to talk about the fact that you have the prosecutors in charge like Kim Foxx. I mean, Amonte Morgan, the alleged gunman, he was charged with felony theft and misdemeanor battery in 2019. He basically should have been prosecuted in Wisconsin, which they did not fully prosecute them. It was an armed robbery that he attempted. He could have been prosecuted for put in jail for 40 years. Instead, he got 3 years probation. Then while on probation, he continued to offend. And there's another report about him that was picked up later this week after they started looking into his entire record. And that is the fact that he was actually, drive recklessly. He slammed into a man in the loop in a crosswalk. He broke the windshield. The pedestrian went flying across against a stop sign. He never stopped. He finally hit a parked car. And instead of being in jail for that offense as well, while he did this on parole, he is out making a straw purchase for his brother, who then murders Ella French. John, we have a problem with crime, right? So I wanted to talk to you about this. What do you see on the streets? What's happening in your neck of the woods in Rockford? I mean, this is obviously a Cook County prosecution issue, but it's also a Wisconsin issue. What's going on? Why are these guys not in jail?
Well, we would need to have a few hours to be able to talk about every issue that is wrong with the criminal justice system. But the major thing that is going on right now is the problem of this police reforms bill, quote unquote, that Springfield just passed, and the attack on law enforcement that's been going on for a little bit of time now. The police have pulled back because any little thing that they do could get them in trouble. And they do not want to lose their house. They don't want to go to jail. They don't want to lose everything they own because of a mistake that they made. So that is one of the problems. The other problem is we don't have judges that are being tough on crime. We have judges that are letting people out, and it's a problem that we've got to seriously face. The judges go for retention quite often, with usually no one knowing anything about them, and it's becoming a problem because they're not doing their due diligence, making sure that the people that need to spend a long time in prison are actually doing that. Then you have the problems go on. The problems go on. It's we're making it. We're going to be doing no cash bail any longer.
Yep.
So that is going to be a problem when the officer arrests somebody, puts them in jail. And before the officer has the paperwork done, that person's already back out on the street, possibly reoffending again.
So you're talking about HB 3653, that horrific bill that passed in the dead of night, literally at 3 a.m. During lame duck session in January, with legislators that were going to be out of office. Some of them actually just even after taking the oath of office resigned within the first month, including Madigan, who, these guys voted for all this stuff. That's the bill you're talking about. That bill is a statewide bill that basically handcuffs police on what they can do. Is that correct?
Yes, and in fact, I believe it was the Senate that passed it at 3 a.m. The House,
okay.
we passed it. That was my last vote that I took as a state rep, with my speak button pushed, and they refused to call on me.
Because
and
you're a
then
police officer and you obviously have no context to add to the conversation, apparently.
and they called the question, and it took them. See, a lot of people don't know what really happened. It took them 3 minutes to find 60 votes. We were not able to do a verification. If we did the verification, it probably would have taken much longer, because, as you know, sometimes or lots of times, people just push other people's buttons without that person knowing. It was.
I remember
this
the vote.
was such a monumental bill, as they were saying that it was. Why did they have a very, very short debate that was allowed on that bill? Why didn't they let that bill be vetted like most other bills? I think it's because they knew that they wouldn't have the votes if people actually pointed out what was in that bill. Part of what was in that bill, mind you, is part of trespassing law.
Yes.
So if somebody comes and decides, you know what, I want to camp on your property, and they set up their tent, and you go out there and you say, you're not allowed to be here, please leave. And let's say you even have no trespassing signs up, and they refuse to leave. So you decide, you call the police. The police will come to your residence and tell the person that they need to leave. If that person decides not to leave, then the officer will issue them a citation. And if that person still doesn't leave, the officer will tell you, well, we're very sorry, but they do have a appearance that they must show up in court for. Have a good day.
John, can I ask you about something? You touched on it a little bit in the beginning of your opening statement here, but police training has been a national conversation for the past year since the George Floyd murder. And it's, especially with regards to violence in the city, Dan Proft put up a quote from an insider at the Chicago Police Department following the Ella French murder, saying that citywide teams are useful and effective, but there's a huge difference. Teams used to be full of experienced officers trained during a different era of policing, and now they not only don't they have the experience, but they've learned a different way to police. So as a result of all the political pressure that's been put on police departments, has it impacted not only the efficacy of the force, but has it impacted police officers' ability to even protect themselves?
Well, I yes and no. Again, it's nothing that's going to be able to be answered fully within the time frame that we have. But police officers are afraid to do lots of things now because of the culture that is coming out of Springfield. We are pretty much going to probably be a secretary. What we'll do is, the police will not go to the scene as quickly as normal. They will document everything that they see once they get to the scene, and then they will leave and write up the report and let the courts decide what they want to do from there. Only because that is what Springfield is wanting our officers to do. You might as well take the police patch off of their shirts and put security or report writer, because that is what it's coming down to.
Okay, so you bring up a good point, because Officer French, her partner, and the other man, the other officer that was with him, was a 3-person team. They were called a community safety team patrol. This is a particular, they're sent in there to just basically monitor what's going on. They're often sent into violent areas, but I'm reading from a report that Chicago Tribune did on this, and it says that the community safety team roster from January of this year shows that among the 822 police officers that then tasked to it, 373 had start dates with the department just in the prior 4 years. 225 Head Start dates in the year of 2018 alone. The same year French became an officer. So they've got these community safety teams that typically had been, when you went in and you were responding to areas that are known to be violent in the city, you had the more experienced officers there. Now it appears that they are not getting enough volunteers for those particular beats, and so they are basically having younger cops with less experience go into what they call community safety teams. I mean, this seems to be part of the problem here, is that their reaction or their training as a community safety team is different than that of a more experienced team on the lookout for gang bangers, so to speak. What do you say about that?
Well, the reason is that any officer that is able to retire has been, because of what is coming out of Springfield. The people that are doing recruiting are finding that the numbers of people that want to be a police officer have plummeted. So we're losing the experience that we've had of officers and upper echelon because of what's coming out of Springfield.
Yep.
And it's exactly what Springfield wants. They do not want, officers to do anything out on the street except for document. And then I'm sure they're going to start telling us how they want it documented to make sure that it comes in the out the way they want it to.
So you're becoming paper pushers, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Okay, one other thing that I wanted to get to, actually two things. The other thing is this whole straw purchaser idea thing, because just 2 weeks ago, there was a huge, they only gave a straw purchaser 8 months in federal prison in a case where they had a known straw purchaser. He was an Illinois man. He wasn't an Indiana man. I mean, they've talked about this, and then he gets 8 months for a straw purchase for a gun that was used in multiple shootings on the South Side. Then in this case, you have the straw purchaser in this case with Ella French dead. He gets immediately a $4,500 bail, and he's back on the street. I mean, are we actually, for all the talk about straw purchasers, are they treating these straw purchasers as a serious crime?
Not any longer. I mean, Jeannie, you remember when I'm sure you were there when they were debating mandatory minimum sentencing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How they want to get rid of mandatory minimum sentencing. I mean, JB, under the ruse of COVID, let 64 murderers
I forgot about that. Yep.
out of prison early. These are people that committed horrible, heinous, violent murders. And JB says, well, I'm sure they've changed their ways now, and let them out of prison, along with hundreds of others. So what we're seeing is which I'm kind of surprised the feds only gave him 8 months, because the feds are usually the sane people in the room when it comes to these types of things. So without knowing the exact case, it could be that there was a plea involved where he gave up more information on other folks. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. We're going to be talking to a lady also that Mount Prospect blew up basically this week as well. Massive rally of people because the League of Women Voters and a few other sort of activist far left people wanted to get rid of the police patch that has the thin blue line in it. And what we do know is that Antifa was involved there. What is the thin blue line? What does the blue line patch mean to you as a police officer? And what do you say to the critics who say that it's become co-opted by white supremacists?
Well, as you know, I'm Mexican, So I don't believe that I would be wearing any type of a patch that, or supported any type of a patch that was in favor of any type of supremacy in any color whatsoever. The blue line patch is a patch that means that you support the fallen officers, the men and women of law enforcement, first responders who gave their lives serving the public in which they had the honor of serving. If I saw racism within the department that I work for, I would be doing whatever I can or could to eliminate it. Every single department would have at least 99.9% of the people doing the same thing. As I've said before on the floor of the House, there are bad people in every single profession. How many governors have gone to prison? How many state representatives have gone to prison? How many are under indictment right now? We've got bad people in every single profession. We need to weed them out. But that thin blue line has nothing to do with any type of racial supremacy, period. And anybody that wants to think that, I'm sorry, they're probably not thinking correctly.
What do you see as being the political basis for these? I know defund the police is broadly unpopular among the populace, but you have Chicago basically defunding the police. They're certainly handcuffing them in a lot of respects. They've reduced their training. They've reduced what they're able to do, effectively, and they're throwing people out of, it's a revolving door at the state's attorney's office. So it seems like, where is the disconnect that you see between voters and what the political class and everyone? Illinois everyone's a Democrat that's in power, right now. Basically, we have a super minority in the state legislature of Republicans. So where are we not connecting the dots? They don't like the idea of defunding the police, but that's exactly what we're doing, and we've been doing it for a while, and they keep electing Democrats. So what are we missing? What are they missing? I'm not missing anything.
First of all, the one thing that we're missing as Republicans is we're missing money to get our message out for candidates. We have, when you have different special interest groups giving millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to Democrat leadership to continue a majority.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to get. I would have thought by now that the message of how crime is just skyrocketing would get to the average everyday voter, but apparently the multiple millions of dollars that they're spending against candidates is overshadowing that. So until we have donors that are going to step up to the plate and say enough is enough, I don't foresee that changing. But I can't fathom how people continue to vote for the same people constantly when they should see the state eroding in front of them. You look at any democratically run state or city that are doing things in that nature of defunding the police or taking away the power of what the police used to be able to do. Their crime rate is just through the roof, and you see people fleeing left and right. Well, so I just don't get how we get our message across until we have some donors that have finally said we've got
and
candidates.
You're not wrong about that. Is the frequency of the message is really important. So I agree with you there.
John, we want to thank you for coming on our podcast. Just like everything else that you've seen going crazy in this country in terms of like deciding which businesses can operate and which ones can't, deciding when you can mask, when you can't, mandating vaccines. All of this is a political issue. This is all political. It's not going to get solved. Go ahead. I think you should rally. I think you should bother these elected officials. Mm-hmm. I think you should be in there, literally be in front of them any chance you get and send them a strong message. But honestly, the solution will not come until next year when you vote in different people. You have to vote differently. This is a political solution. There's nothing else other than to solve it at the ballot box. That's how we do it as Americans. You must vote these people out of office and you will get different policies. So we are all in to help you any chance we can with your race there for state representative. We need your voice down there. We thank you again for joining our podcast. Have a great day.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. If I can say one last thing,
sure.
If we can get all of the pro-police groups together and do a huge rally at the doors of the Capitol, that's what we need to do. We need to get all the groups, all the people that support the police together, do one huge rally in Springfield to show the heroes of our law enforcement first responders that the silent majority has woken up, and we support them 100%.
Yep, idea. I think we should do that during veto session, and I've already had somebody reach out to me who wants to do something very similar. So we'll help put that together.
Mm-hmm.
And please let me be a part of it.
You bet, absolutely. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks, John.
Stay safe.
You too.